the Raj and Drew Show for entrepreneurs. We have a fantastic topic today. We're going to talk about reflection. And the title of this episode is Reflect to Innovate. Raj, that's a great title. I'm excited about this. I love reflection, but I'm excited to hear your take on reflection and what it means to you. So let's jump right into it. What is the foundation of reflection? When you think of reflection and how reflection can help an entrepreneur, what's the big idea?
So if you go back and talk about reflection, it is the proactively taking time to think without any distractions. That is the simplest form of it. When I talk to my coaching clients and everybody else, that is the piece of it I tell them. This is your time. No distractions, no cell phones, nothing, but just focusing on and thinking through the process. And if I go back and listen to some of the clients I've been working with, these are all entrepreneurs, CEOs, and everybody else. And the topic and the timeline says, Raj, one of the biggest things when we go back and do this is we always have some new ideas and innovative ideas. So they drive innovation there. Then based on those, they make some very, very good strategic decisions. And the biggest part of it is they're much more productive and they can propel their business forward with ease. And those are some of the words and the themes that I always hear when I go back and talk to people about this piece of it, which is reflection. Reflection from an entrepreneur point of view. That is what my focus has been all since 2016.
Okay, so what happened in 2016? What made this shift and why did you focus on reflection starting then?
Yeah. So one of the biggest pieces was I was working like crazy. So there was a lot of things going, business was growing, everything was going. But when I went back and I think there was a 2 or a 3 day window, something happened. I was supposed to do a workshop for 3 days with a client and that got moved for whatever reasons. So I didn't have any meetings. I didn't have anything else. So I just sat in my office and went back and said, okay, what can I do with my time? So it was accidentally, I got into the reflection mode for 3 days. And that was 3 days, I came up with 2 new two new services I wanted to offer. There were several new ideas that I shared with some of my clients because I was very proactive in really going back and thinking and saying, what are some of the things I can help my clients with? Because I already had some clients who have been with me for 5-6 years then. And I said, what can I do differently? And this 2.5 days of reflection or thinking or whatever you want to call it has given me enough ammunition and said, hey, I need to make a habit of this. So that was the birth of my reflection or my aha moment, if you want to talk about. And then I've been talking to some of my clients who are my CEO coaches, entrepreneur coaching, all of my 1-year clients. I've been slowly introducing that since then. A simple example I will give you. I had a client whom I started in August of last year. When I spoke to them about their business and everything else, he was very comfortable. He's in the medical clinic field. And he said, Raj, I would be very happy. I have 5 clinics right now. I want to be 10 clinics. And then I want to come up with an exit strategy. That was in August. He was introduced to the reflection and everything else. So basically last Friday, we had the 3-year strategic planning piece of it. And we wanted him to define BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. So we always say 10 to 12 years, where do you want to be? You know what the goal was? 50 clinics.
Wow.
He was thinking of 10 clinics and exiting from the business to 50 clinics in 10 years. And I asked him, what exactly? He said, Raj, now I had the time to reflect. I had the time to think. I had time to go back and take action. The first few weeks felt like I was not doing anything productive because as human beings, we are very, very comfortable with our hands-on work, which is what makes the entrepreneurs very successful in the early stages. But after a certain stage, they need to stop being hands-on, delegate it to the people, and they need to be much more strategic. And for you to be strategic, they need the time to reflect and think and see what is happening. Look at it from a big picture point of view rather than the day-to-day grind and everything else.
What do you say to the person, listening that go, the hustle and grind, right? The hustle and grind culture, get out there, work 80 hours a week, just go out and do. I mean, this reflection seems counter to that mindset.
So what the one piece of advice I would say is for 60 to 90 days, out of the 80 hours, take 6 hours, every day 1 hour. Since you're already working for 80 hours, I'm fine with it. So take 6 hours out of that. And every day spend 1 hour on your reflection piece of it. And do that for 60 to 90 days. The same person, the same productivity can be achieved in 45 days. I can put a bet on that for anybody.
Wow.
They can go back and get a productivity of at least 20%.
So essentially, reflection is kind of the work smarter, not harder. It helps you work smarter, basically.
Exactly, exactly. Because
All
you
right.
will start thinking of about it. And if you look at an entrepreneur perspective, anybody, they're always looking at the hustle piece of it, like you
Hmm.
just mentioned, and they're always thinking of it from a business and finance. So they're always in the mindset of only two things. And with my experience, and I have seen so many people, I work directly and the people, these things, they build good businesses, but their personal life struggle. They suffer, some of them on the personal side of it, or
Hmm.
some part of their life is not. So here, when I go back and talk to people about reflection and stuff, I go back and say, hey, do a complete 360 reflection. What I mean that is there are 8 categories of items that we need to keep thinking about in life.
Okay.
And the first piece of it, I always tell them is everybody thinks about business, but I say health and fitness. Just think about it. What are you doing? How can you spend some time and everything else? And if the business requires your time, that's okay. Be proactive about it and say, you know what? I'm not going to do anything with health for the next 3 months or 6 months, but let me come up with a program and a date and build everything to that. That's what I
Hmm.
tell people. This is not to go back and say, starting tomorrow, I want to do everything. No, you're thinking about it and saying where the business is, where am I personally, where are my finances, what is the best thing to do. So go back and look at health and fitness. The second aspect I tell them is business and career. And I'm talking career is because all the listeners may not be entrepreneurs. They might be having some great corporate careers or small business careers or anybody else.
Yeah, more of an entrepreneur.
Yes. And then the third piece of it is family and friends. The fourth is all about your personal relationships and romance, depending on who you are, what age you are, and things like that.
Hmm.
And finance comes fifth. Sixth, personal development. Seventh, you always need to go back and celebrate fun and recreation piece of it. And then basically spiritual piece of it is the eighth part. So I
Hmm.
look at life from these 8 different segments of it.
Yeah.
You want to go back and have a balance about it. And for me, when I say balance, it is not about every day I need to do all the 8 things. You prioritize what is important. So, like busy period, right? There are some people say, you know what? I am really not going to be focused too much on my fitness or anything else. I'll just go back, walk for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. That is enough for my body to keep, but I will not get a trainer. I will not get into strenuous exercise routine because this
Yeah.
next 3 months are so busy. But after that, I'll go back and look at it. That is the strategic piece of it, which I was talking about. Being very, very strategic about where do you want to spend the time, how much you want to spend the time. All of that
Hmm.
will be coming from the power of reflection piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, there's no such thing as perfect balance in life. Sometimes your family needs you more than work, and other times
Exactly.
work needs you more than family. And you want to make sure you're touching base and you have a good idea of the pulse and the health of those various areas. But you're not saying that your day is divided up into those 8 categories evenly, perfectly. That's not what you're saying at all. And
Yes. Yes.
I think that's a realistic approach to life.
No, no, that is what people need to do. And when you don't take the time, it feels like that.
Yeah.
Like I have done a lot of business travel over my years from my corporate life and my business life, right? So I tell people, at least the way I prioritize is not the quantity. I'm going to prioritize the quality of the time I spend with my friends and family, or the quality of time I spend on any one of the 8 categories.
Yeah, because you could be sitting next to each other on a couch, but not engaging, not having a
Yeah.
conversation, or you could have, something that I love doing as a parent. I started years ago is I have my kids on a rotation, and once a month I take one of them or two of them because I got five out to on a date, and
Yes.
so it's one-on-one time. It's me and them. It's not long. It maybe takes
Yes.
an hour, but we just go on a little date. We catch up. Where are you at? What's going on? What are you enjoying? What are you dreaming about? And just spending time together. And it's purposeful. And they look forward to it. I look forward to it. And it has helped us have our own personal relationship, not a relationship with mom and dad, but just with dad, And my wife has other things that she does to have just mom relationship. And I think it's healthy, but it doesn't take a lot of time. You just have to be intentional about it and be purposeful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I remember doing the same thing in my corporate life when my kids were young as well. So every Thursday evening, whatever it is, I used to get out of my office at 4:30 every Thursday. And then one week it was my daughter, then the other week it was my son.
Yeah.
And I don't do anything. They set up the agenda. Like I remembered one evening where we spent about an hour and a half just watching Barbies, looking at Barbie dolls. And that's what she wanted to do. And then she
Yeah.
wanted to go and get a slice of pizza from her favorite pizza place. I said, fine. But that was the quality time. I was
Yeah.
proactive. I could take the time. The other times I'm busy or not, at least the Thursdays were very busy with the kids.
That's
And then
good.
if there
It's
was
those little
travel,
disciplines over
yes.
time.
And exactly, that's there and stuff. So, Drew, to add to the point, whenever you go
Yeah.
back and take the power of reflection, right? Basically, it's almost like when you know back, when you're working with a big database or something in your computer and it is processing, you'll always have the hourglass, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when the hourglass is there, you can't do any other activity on your computer. It has
Yeah.
to process it. And then once it settles, then again, the computer works normally. Think of the time you take your reflection is stopping all of the processing so that you can catch up. Growth can catch up with you. Things can
Yeah.
catch up with you. And that is the way I always go back. Pausing to go back and help growth to catch up to you is the power of reflection.
That's good.
Because
So how do we do it? I mean, what is the process and how do you do it? How do you go through the reflection process?
so one of the biggest process for me is I try to make it very, very consistent for me.
Okay.
So you want to have every weekly session, daily session, a consistent time and the consistent place if possible. Like for me, Sunday evening is very important. So Sunday evening, I'm most of the time sitting in my office with no distraction, thinking of everything that has happened in the past
Mm.
and thinking about what is coming next week and then balancing everything out. So generally it takes some time for you to go back and look at it. So whenever I look at it from the reflection and look at it from a weekly perspective or a monthly perspective, right? There are several things that happen. We call it the power of I. The
Mm-hmm.
first is basically you're trying to investigate and try meaning from every experience that has happened. So let us say if I look at last week, right, you might have a lost deal. You must have good, great feedback. You might have poor feedback. There's so many things that are happening from the field perspective, personal life, professional life. And there you're trying to go back and say what worked, what did not work, and you're taking the time to learn everything. The good and the bad, you want to go back and look at it.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is an idea or a concept. It is almost like your incubation, right? Slow cooker. You remember the slow cooker piece of it?
Oh
You
yeah.
put it on and it goes on for 24 hours, slow cooking, everything else. So sometimes the ideas, we don't have a clear picture, but there is something about it that we want to go back and make it happen. So this is when it starts processing and you use some time to go back and help you to incubate on ideas. That is where the power comes from. And sometimes, basically, elimination. You go back and look at the experience as part of your routine, especially when you're doing the pounding and the grinding piece of it. There are a lot of things are happening, and you're just going with the punches, but you're really not learning from the experiences.
Yeah.
And that is what it is. How do you get value from that experience? That is the elimination part of it. And
Yeah, I think
sometimes,
with that one, John Maxwell has a great quote, one of my favorite on reflection. He says, "Reflection turns experience into insight."
yes,
And just because we've all met old idiots, that have lived a lot of life, but they haven't pulled any insights out of their lived experience, and it's just experience. That's it. And
yes.
so that illumination, that really speaks to me when I think about reflection.
Yes, yes, it's very, very powerful. And what I tell people is if you want to have the answers, this is a time to calm yourself down and start asking the right questions.
Mm.
Once you start asking and you calm down and ask the right questions, the answers will come. And that's the reason the power of I is so powerful in the reflection piece of it.
Yeah.
And then, Drew, you were talking about how do you get started with this, right? So
Mm-hmm.
most of the time when you don't have a habit of reflection, start with some of the basic stuff. Basically, just thinking of simple questions like, what is my biggest asset?
Yeah.
Do we really know? We are just working, but do we know what is our biggest asset? What is our biggest liability?
And do you
And
mean your business, or do you mean you personally, kind of what is your greatest competency and where is your greatest, yeah, what do you mean by that? Do you mean in the business or as a personal?
it's both.
Okay.
It is both. So most of the time, if you look at it from an entrepreneurship point of view, your business is a reflection of who you are.
Yeah.
Until you get to the first 40, 50 employees, first 5, $10 million, you and the business are the same. So for me, that's the reason why I go back and say both.
Yeah.
Because whatever your value system is displayed in your business. Whatever
Hmm.
you're working on is your personal passion. That's why you got into the business. So that is interchangeably there. And that's the reason why I basically look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
And then you want to go back and think of it as what is my biggest high and my biggest low? What really motivates me? What does not motivate me? And then there are a lot of emotions. When you are an entrepreneur, there are a lot of emotions, right? Basically, what is my least worthwhile emotion? What is my most worthwhile emotion? What are some of my best habits? What are my worst habits?
Mm.
And then if you go philosophically and everything else and say, what does really fulfilling to you mean to you?
Yeah.
What is fulfilling for you? What are some of the things that you're prized possessions. It might be skills, it might be achievements, whatever it is and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to go much deeper, you go back and say, who am I?
Yeah.
Basically, what do I want to become? What I'm today? So these are some of the simple starting questions to go back and just thinking of. Start with 15
Simple.
minutes. Very simple.
Those are some deep questions there, Raj.
But they're very simple if you go
They
back
are
and look at
simple.
it.
They are simple. And if you can't answer them, right, there's
Yes.
a level of lack of self-awareness there, because we
Yes.
have to understand ourselves. We're going to be a better leader. We're going to be a better entrepreneur. We're going to be a better, husband, spouse, whatever, right? If we take the time to understand what makes us tick and what levers we need or what buttons we need to push internally to get the output that we're looking for in the situation that we find ourselves in.
Yes, very, very true. And Drew, one key point I want to make here and really highlight here is your attitude and your self-talk is very critical. So if you have a mindset of, let us say, too much of negative talk, then this would not be a great experience for you.
Yeah.
You always want to be looking at it from a neutral perspective or from a positive attitude perspective, because that self-talk can cripple us. And you can go into a downward spiral with all of the negative thought. So that is the one big caution I give people is please don't talk too much about your negative. Yeah. And the rule of thumb I say is don't spend more than 10 to 20% of the time, reflection time on that. Because there are certain things that would not go as planned. You need to learn from it. That's okay. Yeah. But no more than 20%. 80% has to be today and the future. 20% is the past because we can't change the past. We can only learn from it. And that is one of the biggest. If there are some people who say it doesn't work, then I go back and say is look at your self-talk. What are you talking? Where are you spending? If you're spending a lot of time in the past, then there is no energy because you can't change anything. Yeah. And that is very, very important for anybody. So they have to be very, very proactive. They have to have that positive mindset and say, what can I learn from this to make my tomorrow better? That is the attitude I always tell people to.
Yeah, and if you did make a mistake, if you did, lose your cool and you said something you wish you hadn't, or you fired an employee preemptively and you were just in a fit of rage and they were a really good employee, okay, you messed up, right? Yes. Now, what were the factors around that? What was your state of mind? Why did it upset you that much in that moment? Oh, because I had an argument with my kid an hour before, or I almost got in a car accident, or whatever, right? And recognizing there were contributing factors, and it's the autopsy, if you do the autopsy and you find out, okay, this is where it went wrong, make sure I don't do that again, or make sure I take a day, 24 hours to off. Well, I'm obviously telling where I make my shortcomings. It's, in getting angry or saying something, I wish I wouldn't have said, or something like that. And so I'll go back, I'll reflect on that. I'll say, where did I go wrong? Or in a sales deal, if the deal didn't go down, let me rehearse. Okay, what did I say here? What was my process? Where did my process fail me? What do I need to change? If it's proactive, you can do it. But if it's not, if you're just going to go and beat yourself up, then you're going to have all kinds of anxiety and you're going to want to drink alcohol, so right. You got to understand that about yourself. Yes. And like you said, the mindset of how you do it is critical. Yes. If you're going to get the positive out of it. Yes. No, very, very important. Everything we said was great, but if you are starting with a negative mindset, you are in trouble. Mm-hmm. The mindset piece of it is so critical for the power of reflection. Yeah. If you show me somebody who is not really seeing value in it, then basically I will show you a person who is going into this session every day with a negative mindset. Yeah. That's the simple. I don't even believe in this. This is silly, but whatever. Okay, I'm reflecting. La, la, la. Yeah. If that's your mindset, no value. Yes. Yes. So let's get into the nitty-gritty details of the reflection piece of it. So what I always recommend is you want to take at least 15 to 20 minutes at the minimum every single day. When I say every single day, working day, I'm taking Monday to Friday. Mm-hmm. And what you'd go back and look at it is if you're only looking at your professional side, it can be your business, it can be your career, whatever it is, then take about 15 to 20 minutes for that. Yeah. And the first thing you do is just highlight and think through what have you accomplished today, because making progress is one of the biggest single most motivator for anybody. So the first thing you go back and highlight it, maybe 3 sentences, 2 sentences. If you like journaling, write about it. If you don't want to write, that's perfectly fine. At least think about it. That is the first thing. Start with that, not with the negative, but with the positive. Okay. And the second piece I always tell people is, and this is where the first 60, 90 days, it's very important to follow this.
The reason being is now you're cultivating a habit. And the second part of it is while you're thinking through the whole day and reflecting on it, you want to start identifying specific ideas or times during the day where you were energized.
Mm.
And when you start looking at it over a period, a few days and a few weeks, what happens? You start seeing a trend in it. You know what? Every time I'm doing task A and I'm really motivated. Every time I'm doing task C, I am not motivated. So now you're learning yourself at a much deeper level. And that's
Hmm.
the reason why the 60 to 90 days, just trust the system and go back and do that.
Yeah.
And that would become very, very important for them. And then when you summarize everything from every day, on good days, you feel like you had a very, very productive day. You're very excited. And let us say there are days where they're not going to be, everything is turning the way we want it to turn. So it's a bad day. But if you go back and do this piece of it, you'll at least say, you know what? I really, it is not too bad. I have proceeded and I got 60% done, 70% done, 80% done, rather than feeling saying that, you know what, I didn't do anything today or I did not accomplish anything. And on a bad day, also making the progress, seeing the progress will really help you to think through.
Hmm.
And what I tell people is, as a bonus piece of it on a daily basis, when you're reflecting and think of it is, hey, does anybody help me today? Or do they deserve a kudos from me? Send a thank you email or somebody a praise or something. Because that is the gratitude you show. And when you start putting the gratitude, the positive energy comes to you.
Absolutely. And with if you're a leader of a team, what gets rewarded gets repeated. You know,
Exactly.
especially the kudos and the attaboys and attagirls and saying, "Hey, this was really awesome when you did this, and I noticed." That goes a long way for team culture. And
Yes.
if you can, but you have to pause and you have to think, okay, what happened? What are the things that went well? And is there anybody, like you said, that needs to be celebrated because of it? It's
Yes.
powerful. It's just those little things that make a huge difference on a team.
Yeah. And Drew, what I tell people is everybody thinks that you're doing a favor for others. But what me personally is, it makes me feel good. It makes,
Mm,
so I am much more beneficial even when I send a thank you note
hmm.
because I feel like, you know what, I made a difference.
Yeah,
And that kind of a positive side will always catch up and it'll give you extra energy to go back and do more.
absolutely.
And then for some people, I always say is take quickly few minutes and think of the next day. Hey, what are some of the things? Are there anything important? Anything that is very, very critical? And for me, I call this priority management. And based on my priority management, I want to manage my energy management.
Hmm.
And let me explain. Let us say tomorrow I have a very big meeting at 2 in the afternoon. I will make sure that I am preserving a lot of energy for the 2 o'clock meeting because it has huge consequences, positive or negative.
Yeah.
So I might block off about half hour before that so that I'm really thinking very well about it. Or I might not put too heavy load of work from morning till 1 o'clock.
Hmm.
So you can start planning your day so that you keep the important stuff important.
Yeah, which brings up a whole nother point of understanding what's most important, right? What are you prioritizing? I tend to prioritize revenue generation, you
Yes,
know?
exactly.
I mean, as a small business owner, that's what you have to prioritize. And that it's like, okay, I have an opportunity to have a discovery meeting or give a presentation or present a proposal. Okay, I have to be 100% all in, and then you just start backing it up. And if it's an early morning meeting, then you probably need to go to bed early the night before. Don't stay up late working and finishing up some different paperwork. Make sure you have that one thing very well. And it's funny because I've, upon reflection, I've seen this in myself is I kind of get just a one focused mind in some of these situations. And I think I told you weeks ago, I put together a panel discussion and got some AI leaders. And when I'm in that mode, it's just all I see, all I think about, all I talk about. That's the focus because that's the priority and I can get laser focused on it. And other things fall by the wayside during that time. So it's almost like, any strength overused it can become a weakness. And so I have to
Yes.
modulate it and I have to know that about myself and understand what are the other things I have to do. But when you get of one mind like that, you can really focus in. So you have to make sure you've taken the time to reflect and think about what is that thing that you're going to focus
Yes.
in on and is it the right thing at the right time?
Very, very powerful piece of work. And people start realizing when they pass. A lot of people in the first 30 days, it becomes a little bit new and stuff. Change is hard. I agree with it. But anybody who has stuck with this for 60 to 90 days, they really start seeing the benefits of it.
Yeah.
And basically, if you're looking at it only from a business point of view, that's fine. It takes you only 15 minutes to do it after the
Hmm.
first few times. And you want to go back and bring in your personal life as well. Remember, I was talking about 8 elements, right? So
Yeah.
at any given time, you have the priorities. So if you want to include and incorporate your personal, then it might go from 30 to 40 minutes.
Hmm.
And initially, it might be a little bit longer because you're thinking and getting into a system. But once you're done the 30 to 60 days, definitely it can be done in 30 to 40 minutes on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And if we are working 80 hours, that 30 to 40 minutes will make the other 80 hours very, very productive and effective.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you're going to get into kind of where you do it or time and places, but I know for myself in different seasons of life, but in this current season of life, I drive about 40 minutes into the office. And instead of playing a podcast or an audiobook, or which I'd love to do all those things, but often I will just take that 40 minutes, no stereo, no radio on, and I will just reflect and I'll think about, okay, what's been happening recently, go through the questions and ask myself, what do I have upcoming? What am I excited about? What do I need to be prepared for? And I was doing it I think it was last week, and I totally missed my exit. So be careful. I was supposed to change freeways and I just kept going forward, and it's like I came up out of a fog. I was so deep in thought. And I
Yes.
looked around and I went, I know this area, but this isn't where I'm supposed to be right now. And it took me a minute. I had to turn around and get where I was going. But during those times of reflection, it's so powerful, and you can really get into in your own head thinking about what's going on and mulling over, dissecting it. And yeah, it's powerful.
And only one thing I would add to that piece of it is as soon as you're done, capture your thoughts somewhere. Come up with your
Mm,
own system. The
yeah.
biggest part of it is when you go back and do this on a regular basis, you want to start summarizing things.
Hmm.
So basically, you have done the 5 working days, you want to do this piece of it. You can take a break if you want for one day. And then you have what we call the weekly reflection. This is generally about, if it is just professional, it is about 1 hour. You want to incorporate even your personal life, it may take another 30 minutes. And the first thing you do for your weekly reflection is quickly review all of your daily logs. You want to make sure you're activating and you're learning for everything. Now you're looking at it from a trend perspective. You want to look at all the times from when your energy was high, when your energy was low, what activated is really energized you. So all of those things are being there. And now you're looking at a week and say, what worked very well for me? A very, very
Hmm.
specific question this week. So those are the learnings from your best practices. And what did not go as planned? And what can I learn from that? So you're
Yeah.
always great things you can learn. See, a lot of people only focus on the things did not work and they don't learn from what worked. So the reflection piece I tell people is what worked is more important because you can replicate it and make it much more easier for you.
Hmm. Why did it work? What was
Exactly.
different about it this time? Why did this client say yes and that one said no? What
Yes.
did I do differently? Did I have a prior relationship with, oh yeah, so and so introduced me. Okay, so a referral enhances my ability to close a deal. I need to try to get more referrals or whatever the case is, but you have to be able to break it down and figure out kind of the what did Paul used to say? Success leaves clues, right?
Exactly.
There are
Exactly. Very, very
clues,
good
but you
line.
have to mine them out. You have to extract them. They aren't just right there in front of your face. You have to take some time to reflect.
Exactly, exactly. And then take a few minutes to just document all of the lessons learned,
Mm.
the positive and the negative. Just take a few minutes because there's a lot of power when you document it. And then once you have the documentation, referring to it is very, very easy. And this is where I tell people is take a few more minutes to plan and think of the next week. Earlier, we were doing on a daily basis. It's a very, very micro. Now you're slowly looking at it from a little bigger macro view. So I call the first one day is like you going on a car. Now you're looking at it like a chopper, 1 week,
Hmm.
and you have a little bit of breadth looking at all things. And the biggest part of you from a prioritization and energy is what are some of the most important tasks which you need to accomplish next week? Block your calendar for those. It can be just for your reflection, it can be for learning, it can be for basically, like you said, revenue generation, whatever your priorities for the week are, go back and do it. So these are non-negotiables. Like
Okay.
Stephen R. Covey says, is these are the big rocks.
Yeah.
You don't want to change that. They have to have their place, and the week has to be filled with those because there is always a chance for a beer at the end of the day because you always have times in between the way
Yeah.
Covey explains that piece of it. So that is the piece of it. So it takes you about an hour, hour and a half, but you have everything from a week's perspective. You went through all the week, learned the best practices, understood what are the times where you were energized, documenting all of those things. best practices, and then planning and looking at the next week and making sure your calendar has enough time and everything else for that. So priority management and energy management. So that
That's
would be the
good.
weekly session. So my habit always is Monday to Friday, I do that. I take a break on Saturday, don't do anything at all. And then I go back on Sunday and start thinking about the week. That's the
Okay.
reason why for me, the Sunday evening is very, very important.
Yeah.
So it takes you an hour, hour and a half, and things work very, very well for you. And now, once you have the weekly piece of it, you want to go to the monthly reflection.
Okay.
So you had the daily, you had the weekly, now you go for the monthly piece of it. And what you do, quickly you look at all the weekly logs. You don't need to look at the daily logs, but you can look at the weekly logs. You have 4 weekly logs. You go back and refresh all the activities, all the learnings, everything that comes. And then do the same thing. How good was this month? You want to make
Mm.
sure that you accomplished a lot. You want to understand all of those things. And then what did not work and what are some of the learnings that come from it. And now in 4 weeks, you have learned where your energy points are. Where
Yeah.
are your high energy? Where are your low energy? And what are your aha moments? What are your best practices? So once you document these things, now you go back and look at your next month. Now you're looking at it the next level of detail and going back and saying, hey, what are some of the key things I need to accomplish for this? And this
Hmm.
is where I go back and tell people is think of your yearly goals and then break them into monthly goals. As an entrepreneur, we know we have our monthly goals.
Hmm.
So most of my clients, they already have a 1 year strategy plan and a 3 year strategy plan in place. So I
Okay.
told them, if you don't look at it on a weekly basis or a daily basis, I'm okay with that. But every month you want to go back and look at it from that. So
Okay.
each one of them will have 3 to 5 big initiatives from a business point of view. There are 3 to 5 big goals they want to accomplish, projects to launch, product to launch, financial targets to hit. A lot of those things are built into their 1 year, 3 year plans. And now
Hmm.
they go back and look at it and say, how did I perform? So you're going a much more deeper into that. And now you're measuring yourself against goals as well. This is the strategy piece of it. Until now, it
Yeah.
was very tactical. And now you go into the strategy piece of it and really look at it from that perspective.
Okay.
And if you need to make some adjustments, then you start prioritizing the activities into the next. So you're putting the rocks for the month now. I mean, you can always change on a weekly basis, but at least you're capturing some of the times. And
Hmm.
this is where it becomes very critical to look at it from the 8 angles. Let us say you said, hey, I've been working too hard. I need to take a break. So go back, block off 2 days and make it a nice long weekend with your family
Yeah.
or anything else that you want to do. So you go for a conference from a learning perspective or anything else, then block off all those dates and be ready to do it. Like from the John Maxwell, every year we used to go back and close out August, right? Remember, I used to go there regularly. Every year, August, we were there in Orlando for the 3 day
Oh yeah.
conference. So that was a very, very nice annual habit I used to have.
Hmm.
So that was a powerful thing for us. And once you did the monthly piece of it, now you go to the quarterly piece of it.
Okay.
Now you're looking at a rhythm, right? Daily, then weekly, then monthly, then quarterly. And here you go back and look at all of your monthly, the 3 monthly logs, all refreshed on all the activities and everything else. And this one, you definitely want to have what we call a strategy performance review from a business point of view and strategy execution review. So I want to look at the last 3 months and say, did I accomplish all the goals I did? What I did for my business, what I did for my personality, and then what do I need to make adjustments for so that I make sure that I'm not missing anything in the next coming quarter. So for salespeople, I tell, hey, you had, let us say, 100,000 as a target in the Q1, you only did 80,000. I go back. This is your time. You look at the next month and say, I have 100,000. Now you need to take your 15 and add it to that and say, now I need to do 115 this month because my year to date goal has to be accomplished. And now I go back and prioritize things. What do I need to do differently? That is where the effectiveness comes. That is where all of the reflection and everything else comes into picture. So whenever you come into the quarter piece of it, you are going much deeper into that. So the quarterly piece, I would say, is because you're involving in so many things, you have to go back and schedule at least 4 hours minimum. I personally go back and tell people, and they say, Raj, anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. That's what I hear from people. But it is worth the time when you do that piece of it.
Yeah. I got an idea while we're in here. I think there needs to be an app that will capture all this and you can just speak into it and it'll capture your thoughts and ideas, but it'll prompt you during your day to reflect. And my daughter just got an app recently that it just gives you a random notification throughout your day, and it says post what you're doing right now. And that's the whole point. You take a picture and you're like, I'm eating dinner with my family. Whatever you're doing at that moment, you're supposed to post. And interesting concept, but if you had an app and it was maybe had some AI in there, so it knew your calendar, and it knows when you're driving down the road, and it just says, hey, have you reflected yet today? Go ahead and share what you've reflected if you have, or if not, take a moment and reflect. It captures it, and then it creates the summary for you. And based on what you are talking about in your times of reflection, maybe ask coaching questions to help you further dive down, or to, put together a weekly, monthly summary. So somebody needs to create that app. I think that's a great idea.
But Drew, just to go back and let you know, there is a gratitude app. It is not exactly
Okay.
from a reflection, but
Yeah.
it does everything that you're asking for. What are you grateful for today? And it
Mm.
randomly asks different questions
Well,
during the
which
day.
prompts you to think. Yeah.
Exactly. So it always does that. I have been following
Hmm.
this app for now approximately a year and a half. I used to
Okay.
have a gratitude app before.
Yeah.
And last year, when I was looking at it, saying, you know what? I really enjoyed doing it for 3, 4 years, but I need something better. Then I was doing the research and I found this app, and I'm really, really happy for it. So I
Oh,
do
that's
that piece
great.
of it. But it was more from a gratitude perspective. Somebody has to upgrade it. But
Hmm.
right now, let me go back and share from a business and an entrepreneur perspective. I am one of
Yes.
those person who work with my calendar a lot. But when you have the calendar, you don't have a task list integrated into that.
Hmm.
So 2 weeks ago, one of my client who is a CEO and who is a customer of mine from a reflection point of view, he went and introduced me to an AI app. And the power of that is you go back and put all your tasks in there, and
Hmm.
it starts finding gaps in your calendar and puts them based on your deadlines and priorities and everything else.
Oh, wow.
And it does not allow you to go back, and it is like a pest. It will be on your calendar, keep on booking even past due date
That is
until you go
great.
back and say, yes, the task is done. It is on my list. So just to go back, I just told you that I was working all day on Saturday, right? Because I put
Hmm.
so many tasks for the last 2 weeks. There were 12 tasks pending. I did not finish it. And I looked at it and I said, oh my God, these are so important. I need to do it. So Saturday, I took the time and said, let me catch up with everything else. And for me, that was a great piece of it until I had two different lists and I could never coincide both, or I could not go back and merge the two to make it very effective. For the first time in the last 3 weeks, I have it much more comfortable on it. I have not completely utilized the facilities of this app, but I'm
Yeah.
very excited because at least I know what it is. Now you and I talk, I just go back and put an task in there and I just give it a random date. If I don't give it a date also, it'll go find a place and put it there. Until I say I'm done, it is not going away.
That's great. What's the name of the app? Do you remember?
Motion. It is called Motion.
Motion. Okay, I'm gonna have
Motion.
to check it out.
So it's a motion AI. Basically, I am really, really excited about it. And the good news is I have somebody who's helping me from India right now. So
Hmm.
basically, I got him an app, and basically I go back and because it is an app for the company, I can go back and say, can you please take care of it? And I just click a button and it is delegated to him with a deadline. And once he finishes, it comes back to me and says, done.
That is awesome. No, I have to do that. That
So
is great. Motion. Okay.
yeah, so basically it's fantastic right now. That is what it is and stuff. So for me, it was a big boon right now because all of my quarterly and everything else. And now when I push off a button, I can go back and look at all the tasks completed, when they completed, how they completed and stuff. I can put notes. Everything is there.
Yeah, that's really great.
So now I'm having good documentation in the file so where I can go back and look at it on a weekly basis, monthly basis, some of the tasks, some of the things that have been completed.
That is so cool. I mean, I'm just not, my wife, she is a, calendar journal, old school type person, and she loves that, writing it in and doing all that. And I just can't do that, can't be bothered with it. It'll be a different, little notebook. I use my phone to record a lot of my tasks that I have to do, to-do list type stuff. But having it automatically turn into something on my calendar, I live on my phone calendar. So,
Exactly. So for me, that is the same thing. I live on my
yeah.
calendar, anything. What I tell people is if it's not on my calendar, don't expect me to show up. It doesn't matter if I promise you orally something, I will not be there because it doesn't show on my calendar.
Exactly.
And basically, when you're doing the quarterly piece of it, basically, I keep talking about remember the VUCA piece of it?
Mm-hmm.
So every quarter you want to look at it from a VUCA perspective because until now you have SMART goals. Now you want to go back and look at it from a VUCA and say, hey, does the volatility in the VUCA, does it change any of the things for me? Is there a lot more uncertainty around my goals or anything like that?
Yeah.
Has the complexity increased because of the environment or whatever it is happening and stuff, or if there is more ambiguity in what is going to happen and can I accomplish my goals or things like that. So this is where on a quarterly basis at a minimum I look at it and put all my goals from a VUCA format and say what need to be deep dived, what needs to be changed, modified, edited, updated and stuff. And that's the reason why I like it to take from 4 hours to 8 hours.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest piece of it, looking at all of your SMART goals on a quarterly basis. All the
Okay.
companies do that piece of it, but people do the look at their personal goals. They do look at all the things. So it's a great opportunity for us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do the quarterly piece of it, once a year becomes the annual planning session, which is very, very powerful and stuff. And here you're looking at all the monthly and the quarterly logs. You're going back and looking at everything that you have a lot of information here. So technically, I always tell people is at least 2 days. That's my personal goal. People can do it in half and half, but I want the first 4 hours to reflect on what has happened for the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, 4 quarters, not
Yeah.
years. So everything that has happened in the last 12 months. And the next half of it is really thinking about the next 1 year and the 3 years and coming up with new goals and everything else. So this is your annual planning piece of it.
Yeah.
And for me, there are a lot of activity that goes on, and that is very, very important for us to go back and look at it. So here, you're not only looking at your yearly goals, you're looking at your 3 year goals. You might be looking at your vision. If it is a business, you have a business vision and purpose. If it is a personal, what are your personal goals? And then here we talk about the BHAG as well. Has anything changed from a long-term perspective? Like right now, anybody who's working with AI and large language models and stuff, they can't have a 10-year BHAG because they don't even know what is coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the only thing they'll say is continuously learning and growing, learning and growing, learning and adapting and growing. That's all they need to go back and look at it. But this becomes one of the biggest one. And basically, Drew, you're saying from a setting perspective, when I was going to Orlando, the 3 day workshop, I always stayed for an extra day.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody left on the third after the third day, rushing to the airport in the evening. I just go there, feel very comfortable for the next day or two, and then have a great breakfast and then spend the whole day reflecting on it. Then the next day I go back and work on my plans, and then I take the evening flight and come back home. So every year that is a routine. Now I attach it to any of my business trips. So in September,
Yeah.
generally I go to California for the Stanford program. So when I'm there, I always take 1 or 2 days extra.
That's good.
Just stay back, take my 2 days, completely work on it, and then come back. And there is something power when you are in a hotel and by yourself. For me, it gives me a lot of energy.
Yeah. Same. Or even better, if you're on the West Coast, have go to the beach and spend some time
Yes.
reflecting. I remember when you first gave me my TTI assessment,
Hmm.
100-page assessment, and all this stuff in there. And I sat on the beach in San Diego. I was with a client, but I was there a day early, and I just sat there and I read the information. I reflected on it. How has this impacted my life? Understanding this about myself. What new awareness do I have after reading this report? And it's powerful. It's powerful, even being in nature. And all of us have our different places, right? For some, it might be a cup of coffee and sitting next to a fireplace or something like that, but whatever gets that part of your brain going where you can slow down. And I do think it's like a medium energy. It's not, you can't be super super high energy, but you can't be low energy. You have to be at this mid
Yes.
space where you're engaged, but you're not rushing, and that's where powerful reflection times come.
Yes. And what I tell people is if people are in the habit of meditation or anything like that, basically
Mm-hmm.
they have some people call it fire breath and deep breathing, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
If they're used to that, that is a great way to start. Any time before this, go back and spend 15, 20 minutes on meditation, spend on deep breathing, whatever works for you. And then you go to a place where you are much more calm and serene. And then you can go back and
Yeah.
start working on that piece of it. And that's what I tell people. And like you said, some people love the beach.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a nice, good long walk in a nice temperature. So for me, that's ideal for me is go spend 30 minutes, have a breakfast, walk for 20, 30 minutes, then pick up a nice coffee, come back to the room, and then start focusing on it.
Yeah. So do you have any of your entrepreneur clients that you've worked with and taught them this process of reflection? Any stories of powerful insights that they've received over the years?
I mean, basically, I can go back and keep talking for the next 1 hour. The stories piece of it. Some basically they might not be comfortable if they hear this and stuff. So I'm not
Sure.
sharing all the stories and stuff like that. So one example I can give you from 2 years ago, the process, they came up with a new service they wanted to offer. And they have generated over $11 million since then. So this was in 22,
Wow.
and they have done this just alone. This was $11 million. So one of my client, they had multiple countries businesses,
Hmm.
and they found something in Argentina that was very powerful. And through the process, he said, I wanted to go back and come up with an idea to say what needs to be done. They took it to the Middle East and Southeast Asia, and they almost grew the business by 300% for that one single product.
That's the power of reflection right there. Wow.
Exactly. And for my personal business, where like one of my young guy who is helping me with sales and my back office, he keeps on challenging me and said, hey, you help so many companies to go back and make millions. Why are you not taking your company to be much bigger than what it is and stuff? So I've been
Hmm.
reflecting on that and everything else, and we came up with the new, complete new service, Entrepreneur Growth Alliance, right?
Hmm.
And basically, you know what? A 27-year-old is leading the whole sales and marketing piece of it. I just need to deliver the product and the service, and everything else is being done. 1 year ago, I would have never even imagined anything like that. Now it
Yeah.
is a reality. So for me personally, that was a beneficial piece of it. You're talking about in the next year to 2 years, it by itself being at least $1 million in revenue.
That's fantastic.
So
That's awesome. So let's wrap this up. You have had so many great insights. You've given us a process of how to do it, the cadence to do it. People can pick the space and the time to do it and what works for them. We know that it works. You have clients that have $11 million idea out of one
yes.
flexion time. So it's powerful. What are some parting thoughts and closing thoughts before we hang up today?
So I would say we as business people, we always think of ROI, return on our investment, right?
Hmm.
So if you look at the whole process I was talking about, you're not talking more than 60 to 70 hours, maybe 100 hours total in a year.
Mm.
But look at the ROI for that. If you're spending 100 hours, which is 2.5 weeks of your time in period of interval spread over 365 days.
Yeah.
And even if you can improve your productivity by 10%, 5%, 8%, it is huge. That is the
Hmm.
advice I tell people. And second piece of it is you're much more calmer and you're thinking and strategizing very, very, very well. That clarity itself is worth thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Your
Forget
own
about the
mental
ROI.
state, right? I think
Exactly.
Elon Musk recently said, he said people wouldn't want to be in my mind. It's like a wild storm, you know, and maybe he needs to just pause and reflect a little bit to calm that storm down because it's worthwhile. Your mental state and your ability to be calm, that's the big thing. That's something we all have to learn.
Yes. And that is what I would put. It is such a small time you go back and spend on this, and the benefits are just huge.
Hmm.
If you are a one person store, one person business to an $100 million business, it doesn't matter. I have tried with all those things. So I
Yeah.
had a client whom I coached and mentored who runs a $225 million business. He has used this and he has seen the benefits of it. And
Yeah.
including me and the small entrepreneurs along with me, we have seen the benefits as well. So it has been proven it is very, very powerful.
Yeah, that's good. That's fantastic. There's a quote, I can't remember who said it, but they said 2% of people think, 3% of people think they think, and 95% of people would rather die than think. And
Oh,
so
yes.
if you find this process of reflection to be challenging at first, that's okay. It's normal, and just continue to engage in the process, continue to work at it and force yourself to really reflect. And it's a form of thinking and thinking back on what happened, what went right, what went wrong, dissecting it. And if you do that, those great ideas are going to come and you're going to reap the benefit of learning this new skill of reflection. That's powerful,
Yes.
Raj.
Raj.
What a great episode.
Yeah. And Drew, basically, you reminded me of a saying that I want to share for one thing is if I really love this and I relate this to myself as well. A bird sitting on a tree is not afraid of the branch breaking because Her trust is not on the branch, but on its own wings.
Mm.
So a bird always, always sits on it, not because the branch is strong, because
Yeah.
it believes in its wings. And for me, the power of reflection, when done very well over a period of time, it is giving me the foundation that I can build anything I want because I'm
That's good.
constantly learning and I'm building my self confidence. And now it is with data, it is with information, with all of those reflection activities and stuff, it is solidifying my base foundation. And now I can go back and say, if not this business, some other business. That's how
Mm.
serial entrepreneurs are so successful. So for me, whenever I think of reflection, this quote of the bird on a branch really resonates with me. And what
Yeah.
I always say is always believe in yourself. And how
Yeah.
do you go back and believe in yourself? Reflection is a very, very powerful tool to build
I think that's a perfect place to end. That is awesome. Thank you, Raj. Thank you all for listening to the Raj and Drew Show for Entrepreneurs. I hope you found value in that everything that Raj has shared with us on the power of reflection. It will change your life. It'll change your business, and you can start doing it today. It doesn't cost you a dime, just a little bit of
Exactly.
time. So
Yes.
thank you so much for listening, Raj. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Drew. All the best to all the listeners and wish you some of the best and build your foundation for whatever goals you want.